What's up, guys? Jay Lee here. Apparently, I've just been on a pretty big conspiracy theory kick lately, but it's just a time that, given the attempted assassination of Trump lately, a couple weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, I think now, um, just a lot of stuff, I guess, have been coming up in my mind and things like that. And I was watching the Joe Rogan podcast, and they had a guest on who mentioned this book called The Dark Side of Camelot, which basically covers Kennedy, JFK, a little bit about his family and his campaign and what type of a person he was and things like that. Apparently, the guy was much more of a sex hound and a sex addict than I had realized. I had heard a lot of rumors. I think even my mom told me that it was a pretty popular rumor that he was sleeping with Marilyn Monroe. And I read something somewhere. I can't remember where I read it, but it was it said basically that Kennedy was talking to somebody, and I don't know if it was like his cousin or somebody in the family maybe, and they asked him like, "How come you're always cheating on your wife?" or something like that, and he goes, "It's just something I do," or something like he had this like really, and it wasn't like an evil thing. It might have been it might have even been a remorseful remark. I don't know. But he goes, it's just something I do. Something along those lines. I'm paraphrasing, but I don't know exactly what he said. But he's like, he said something like it can't be helped, or it's just the way things are, something like that. But I was reading this on the Dark Side of Camelot, and apparently the guy was just having sex all day, every day, with new women, every day, new women, which is interesting. It's like, how does that even happen? How does that work? I mean, you got to be on a level of fame where every woman knows you, right? And that way you can get a continuous stream of women coming in. So it's a combination of good looks, wealth, notoriety, fame. And if you have all that, then it's like you can have a conveyor belt of women in your life. I think of somebody like Elvis reached that point. Somebody like Leonardo DiCaprio has reached that point in our age today. I guess it's, in a sense, you could say it's every man's dream in a way, but it's just crazy to think about. I think about that kind of stuff, and it's just like, what a crazy world we live in. What a sick world, man. And I think of women, and I think how sick they are. It's like, anyway, man. It blows my mind. But I was noticing that there's a lot of similarities between JFK and Trump. John F. Kennedy Jr. and Donald Trump. They both did a lot of dealings with the mob, right? They both come from wealthy families, right? They both are high society, very rich, right? I think they even both have, well, Trump's more of a blonde. I was going to say they both have red hair, but Trump's more of a blonde. But they got so many similarities. They both were, well, JFK was successfully assassinated. They tried to assassinate Trump. And I believe it was the deep state in both cases, which is very, very interesting to me. Because it really was a grassy knoll part 2 type situation where you have this alleged shooter who really was just a patsy. With JFK, it was Lee Harvey Oswald. With this other kid, it was, whatever his name is. I think they both were patsies. From the angle of the shot and where it hit his head, JFK, and then also, I think even the angle of the shot with Trump seemed off. It didn't seem like it was the right angle. I think it was going up a little bit slightly. But if it came from the roof, then it would have been going down. I'm not saying the kid didn't get any shots off. He might have got a couple off. But I don't think he actually hit Trump. I think there was a second shooter below him in that warehouse or that building. That's what I think. And they missed. Which is crazy. But you have to ask yourself, so if you really are into conspiracies, you have to actually, what I think is crazy about this whole thing is, like, for a long time I was pretty sold on the idea, and I kind of still am in a way, I mean, I kind of still am, just in general. I was sold on the idea that presidents are selected, not elected. And if you think about it from a conspiracy angle, if they really did try to take out Trump, then that would lend to him not being selected. They didn't want Trump in, which is crazy to me, because it's like I would figure that now people say that 2020 was rigged, could be, you know, but it's crazy to me that how could they allow him in for even one term if it's not rigged, if he's not selected. I don't know. There's a lot of variables because you got to look at like who are Trump's donators or whatever it's called, campaign funders or whatever. They'll give you a lot of clues there. Trump is still subject to Israel, right? I don't want to go too deep down that rabbit hole because, I mean, that's certainly a rabbit hole. I guess that's the end-all conspiracy theory there, which is even in the Bible, but that is a rabbit hole. And it plays into it, but it's just, anyway, it's hard to talk about that without sounding a certain type of person. But if you know, you know. Just a lot of similarities. I mean, Trump is a philanderer, been through many marriages. If you read that book, The Dark Side of Camelot, JFK was planning on divorcing Jacqueline Bouvier, whatever her name is, if he didn't win the presidency. If he didn't win the presidency, he was going to divorce her. That was his plan because he didn't really like her. It was a high society marriage. He had married one other woman before her, and his father John JFK's father Joe didn't like her. He didn't like that whole scenario. I guess she was married twice before or something like that, and it just didn't sit well with him. She wasn't high society, whatever. I don't know, but he didn't like her, and he went and he got the marriage record stricken from court documents. So there was no proof that marriage actually happened. Which, back then it's like society was very much, which wasn't necessarily a bad thing all the time, but society was very much into like how things looked outward. Everything had to be nice looking outwardly, right? It was a lot more social, and there's a lot more social stigma back then. Of course, there was a lot more racism and bigotry and exclusivity and elitism and all that. There was a lot more of all that back then, but some of it was seemingly okay, because it's like it's good that you want to keep public appearances with your marriage because it doesn't lend to getting a divorce. Marriage is a good thing if, hopefully you choose the right person and you love that person. But anyway, I don't want to keep going off on a tangent, but it was just frowned upon to have multiple marriages back then. So they wanted to keep his record squeaky clean. But now today we have Trump, and he jumps from marriage to marriage, right? Now he's on his third marriage, if I'm not mistaken. Could be just his second, but I think it's his third. I don't know. But he's certainly a philanderer, just like JFK. Another similarity, right? The other glaring similarity that I think is interesting is that they both seemingly, I use that word seemingly, are at war with the deep state. Now, if you look at JFK's, here's who I think killed JFK. I think it was LBJ and George Bush Sr. They worked for the deep state. George Bush Sr. was the director of the CIA. That's deep state. LBJ was, I think, vice president, if I'm not mistaken, to JFK. And he succeeded when JFK succeeded him. There's a picture of LBJ at JFK's funeral, and LBJ's laughing. Just an iconic picture in my mind, because it's like, what are you doing? Like, anyway, but if you knew LBJ and you studied a little bit, he didn't like JFK. There's a lot of problems. They wanted to continue war with Vietnam. JFK wanted to pull out. Not to say that JFK wasn't doing a lot of messed up stuff with Cuba, and he was, assassinating people all over, and it's just sordid. You got to read that book, The Dark Side of Camelot. It's very exposing into how our government works, and basically shows you what really goes on behind the scenes with not only all these crazy assassinations and like all this foreign manipulation in various ways, also wars that are going on for no reasons, and or well, reasons that benefit certain people, but not the reason that they tell us, right? And it really exposes how that part of the government works, and it's shady as hell. It's just super shady. But what's interesting is with all that, and I was thinking about how like JFK was really in tight with the mob. His family was in tight with the mob. But it's interesting that he got killed. He got taken out, I think, 2 or 3 weeks after he had this speech where he was talking about secret societies. He was talking about exposing secret societies, and it's just a fantastic speech, and it's a crazy speech. You're like, what is he talking about? And I don't think anybody knew what he was talking about, because it was like, secret societies, what's this? People didn't know at that time. This is like 1964, 63, right? Something like that. So people were very much in the dark about what he was talking about. But now with the internet and all that, we know who these secret societies are, etc. And it's interesting that when he was talking about it, he was exposing them, and then all of a sudden he's dead a couple of weeks later, and it's just like, well, who belongs to these secret societies? We're talking about Freemasons, Skull and Bones, right? And it's like, well, George Bush Sr. was a Skull and Bones member, I'm pretty sure. I know George Bush Jr. was. Skull and Bones, if you don't know, is like I think it's Yale or Harvard, one of those. It was started at one of those colleges, and basically what it is it's a secret fraternity where only like insanely elite men can be a part of it, and it's really sordid and dark, and it's got links to the occult. It's all about the occult, but it's like high up. I mean, we're talking like Bohemian Grove type stuff, like the inner circle of the inner circle type stuff. You got like Hollywood, you got politicians that, people who belong to those circles are like the inner circle of society. But then you have another inner circle within those circles, and that's like Skull and Bones. That's like this top level occult crap, and we're talking like Prince Charles, we're talking like the president, we're talking like people who run Hollywood, we're talking like the inner circle of the inner circle, right? The kings of the kings, if you will. So these are the people who run the CIA, the FBI, blah blah blah, all these wings or facets of the government that really just do messed up crap that we don't know about, and they're into all kinds of, anyway, you don't need to go into that, but it's sordid as hell, right? So it's like, it's interesting that he called them out. I think what he thought, I don't know, but it seems like what he thought was like, hey, I got the mob behind me, right? I got the mob having my back. Who's gonna mess with me, right? Because the mob, like back then in like 1950s, 60s, was like power. I mean, they ran shit. They ran whole cities. They ran Vegas. They ran New York. They ran Chicago. They ran Miami, right? I mean, like, they owned crap. I mean, like, if you wanted to, and this is why Trump had to deal with the mob, because he was into real estate, he was building skyscrapers, etc. You have to deal with the mob if you're going to go into that business, right? So these people have power, meaning like, you can't get something done if you don't check in with them. You can't run a business. You can't do this. You can't do that. That's power, right? That's almost government type power. So it's almost like JFK trusted that more than he trusted these other secret societies. So for him to, it's just bonkers thing to do. It's just an amazing, uncanny thing to do, is talk about that in that speech. And I don't really know why he did it. It's like, was he really trying to go to war with these people? Was he trying to expose them? Was it a moment of truth? I mean, he wrote it. You know, you could go listen to it. It's just interesting. He's talking about, and yet he was doing some of the same crap he's kind of saying they're doing. He's talking about like subversion. He's talking about political manipulation. He's talking about, you know, all this covert stuff that they're doing. But like, he was doing some stuff too. You know, he tried to assassinate Castro a bunch of times. He was doing stuff, if you go read that book. But I think mostly he was just kind of a bohemian type dude. He just wanted he was just a licentious dude. He just wanted to have sex all day. And he would have sex with escorts, hookers, call girls, Hollywood girls, anybody. He would sleep with married women. It was just all day, every day. And he had this quote where he's like, you know, he's like, I don't get a headache if I don't get a strange piece, you know, strange piece of ass every day. Well, what's a strange piece of ass? It means a new woman. If I don't get a new woman every day, I get a headache. So this is like Elvis type level guy as far as, you know, running through a conveyor belt of women. And yet here he goes and he's outing the secret societies, and it gets him killed. It's just like, what a weird juxtaposition. You know, he's licentious, but I guess he's not fully evil. I guess, you know, there's some people who don't think sex is evil. There's some people who don't think sex is immoral. They think it's normal and natural and good, and maybe it's not the worst type of evil, but it's certainly an immoral thing. It's certainly anyway, it's just an immoral thing, man, and it hits everyone. I heard Muhammad Ali was a womanizer. You know, anyone and everyone has that potential, and if you get a certain level of power, I heard Martin Luther King Jr. was a womanizer. You know, this is the other history that people don't want you to know about, because they make heroes out of mortal men who have sinful problems, you know. But look at Donald Trump, paid off a porn star, and what's funny is nobody cares. Nobody really cares either. Just like, what? And they think he's so great, and it's just like, the dude's immoral. You really want an immoral person to be our leader? But I guess it's just pick your poison at this point. Do you want somebody who's pure evil, like Joe or Kamala, just pure evil like Hillary, right? Just pure uncut evil? Or, okay, here's a guy, you know, like JFK or Trump, who philanders around. You know, they're womanizers, and maybe they're egotistical, or they got this, you know, character flaw, but yet here they are seemingly fighting for the American people. Maybe, you know, I've heard JFK was a pretty good president. You know, it talks about some of his stuff that he did and didn't do in there as well. You know, like social reform and things on racism that he tried to pass that didn't get passed, and education reform or education funding, all stuff like that. There's all these like issues that are actually should be the issues that the president deals with, but they get pushed aside in lieu of like wars or dealing with foreign dictators, and that's the stuff that really gets focused on. For some reason, it's just like, you don't want to fix America. You want to go play around in someone else's playground and manipulate over there. But this is just the state of the world, you know. It's the state of the world that we're in. It's evil. The world is evil, you know. But I would say at least we can be under no more illusions, you know. Which is why it's funny to me how people are like, oh, you gotta vote. And I'm just like, what do you mean vote? I don't like any of these people. They're all evil in various ways. Okay, maybe Trump's gonna lower our gas prices. Maybe he's gonna make more jobs, or maybe he's gonna cause more peace around the world. Maybe. Well, that's why they tried to assassinate him, because they don't want peace. They don't want peace in the Middle East. They want war. It's their plan. Go read Albert Pike. He's got a great quote. He's talking about the Third World War is going to be fomented in the Muslim countries. And look at what's going on right now. War. What did frickin' Netanyahu do 2 weeks ago? Went to Congress and was like, well, we're going to continue to go to war, so screw you guys. Essentially what he said, you know. They called Biden, I think at one point, maybe 3-4 months ago, called for peace, and he's like, we don't want to give you money to keep going for war. He said that, and then a week later he sent them like $15 billion or whatever, however much money he sent them. It's just evil, man. We live in an evil world, an evil system, and I guess it's always been this way. I mean, look at history. Look at how sick history and sordid history is. Look at just how sick all that is. Every nation, how sick they are, all the evil shit they did, the evil stuff that they did to people, and wars, and it's just disgusting. It's inhuman. It's inhuman, and it's also in humans. It's inhuman and it's in humans, meaning there's something in us as a group, as a collective, that is evil. And you know, if we got to take it Christian, we got to take it Christian, and that's what I view it at. I view that is the evilness in man, the evilness in man's heart, the evil that men do. It's manifested. It's what it is. Why are we going to war? Because we're evil. Why are we lying to our own people? Because we're evil. Why is politics manipulated? Because we're evil. Why is the president a bigger lecher than porn stars or whoever, right? Because it's evil. It's not what they say it is. They make you think it's all good. Oh, I'm this great leader, and it's just sick, you know. But it's interesting. It's interesting that the media did not like Trump because, you know, those of us who are in conspiracy theories, we know who runs the media. The media is the fourth branch, right? But they're also the propaganda wing of our government. They tell the people what to think. They claim it's all about transparency and non-biased reporting, which is bullshit. It's all about the bent that they want. It's all about who they're trying to get in, you know. So I don't know, man. It's it ain't nothing nice. It ain't nothing nice, I'll tell you that much. We live in a real sick world, man. So as individuals, and you know, with our families and our significant others, etc., what we can do is we can try to live righteously. I like that movie Noah. I mean, obviously it's not a great movie, but I would say it's not a accurate depiction, because there's a lot of weird sci-fi stuff in there, but it's still a pretty good movie. And at one point he's separated, you know, he's not part of this evil world, and that's one of the things about Noah. If you read the story in Genesis, and that's kind of a running theme in the Bible, is that those who God calls out need to be separated from the world. They need to be separated from all this evil, you know. Because if you just, you know, if your only hope is politics, if your only hope is, you know, if hopefully your country doesn't go bad, then it's like, you know, what if it does go bad, right? Then what's your hope, you know? And it's like, you got to have something bigger. You got to have something bigger than just your community, your city, your state, your government, your country. You got to have something bigger than that. Because if hard times come, what are you going to run to? You know, what are you going to have? It's like, you know, and also if that's all you have in your life to feel good about, it's like, oh yeah, the government's good, or, you know, my country's going well, da da da. It's transient. It's like, okay, well, hopefully nothing messes up, because if something does mess up, then you're in trouble, right? I just feel like we need to. And you know, and also it's interesting because people are like that, and they don't even realize they're part of the evil, right? It's like people in Germany who are just like, oh yeah, we like Hitler, okay, cool, you know, we like this guy, you know, and they didn't even know, they were probably too ignorant about how evil he was and what was going on behind the scenes, right? So it's like, this is why people from other countries look at America and they're just like, and they just shake their head and they're just like, those stupid Americans, because we're over here celebrating war, like we're over here celebrating our soldiers, making movies out of our soldiers and give them all this glory, and we don't even realize these wars that are being fought, they're not for freedom. How much of a lie is that? They're not for freedom, they're for resources, they're for political reasons, they're for, to further our influence over the world. It's imperialism in one way or another, and it's to back up financial interests, banks in these areas, right? All this stuff that you learn, this evil stuff. It's about power. It's about order out of chaos. They don't care about the civilians. They don't care about any collateral damage. They don't care about even soldiers. They don't care about none of it. They care about profit. They care about profit. And they care about furthering their empire. That's what it's about. They care about consolidating power, the personal benefits that come from it. And it's sick. And they're doing all this in our country, through our soldiers who might not know any better. So very sick stuff, man. But yeah, I was thinking about JFK and Trump and all this, and it's like, I heard Trump say not too long ago that he wanted to create peace in the Middle East and peace with Russia and Ukraine. He was saying like, oh yeah, the Russia-Ukraine war would be over immediately once I got in office, and some pretty bold claims, but I don't know. You got to wonder, could he really do it? And if he could, then maybe that's why they really wanted to take him out, because they don't want peace. Rumor has it that a lot of the reason why the deep state took out JFK was because they wanted to go to war with Vietnam, and he didn't want to go to war with Vietnam. He wanted to pull out of Vietnam. But they wanted to continue that war. They had a vested interest, whether it was, I'm sure it was financial. I know there's a lot of poppy seeds, a lot of poppy fields over there. I mean, the stuff that our government and branches of our government does behind the scenes, if you learn about the whole, the Contra Wars in South America and how they did stuff with, cocaine and the drugs and all that kind of stuff. You can learn about that stuff, man. Freeway Rick Ross talks about it on the Joe Rogan podcast. He was a middleman for them. He worked with the government. It's so sick, man. It's so seedy. But you got to wonder, is this why they wanted to take Trump out? I mean, they tried to do a Grassy Knoll Part 2. They tried to do a JFK Part 2. So this is the stuff that goes on behind the scenes, and I think that, what is it though? Like, why does every once in a while somebody comes along, some president comes along, or some guy who wants to be president comes along, and he disrupts the system? Is it really just to sort of expose how corrupt the system is? Maybe it's so God can be like, hey, you know what? I need to shake up this system. I was talking about this with somebody, and it was like, we were talking about how like Trump might be just like, might be like a rock thrown at the hornet's nest, right? To just sort of expose everything, because that's really what he did. He came in and he ran on this platform of exposing everybody, and drain the swamp, make America great again by taking over the government back into our power, and we have all these patriots, blah blah blah, and it's some messed up shit when you really think about it from that angle. You're like, whoa, so it's really corrupt. It's actually very corrupt. But of course Trump can't really drain the swamp. It's probably just a bunch of promises. I mean, he's a businessman. He's a charismatic leader who knows how to market himself. Did he fire everybody in the Senate? Can he even do that? What about the justice system? What about Congress? There's so much there's so many layers to how our government functions and how corrupt it probably is on every layer. Can he really do all that? Can he really cleanse the kitchen? Can he really drain the swamp? Can he really do that? I don't think so. I think probably the average person the average Trump supporter is just too dumb to realize that that's not even possible, that these people are entrenched in these positions. Now, I don't know what's going on with like Rand Paul and these guys who they investigated the Secret Service after the assassination attempt. I don't even know what that branch is called or what that is. Is that the Senate? I don't even know. I really don't. I mean, there's things about the government there's probably a lot about the government that I don't know, let alone the sordid secret history, So I'm not a super historian or a super scholar on political science, but obviously, right? But I know it's corrupt. I know that, and if I know it's corrupt, I'm just an average Joe. If I know it's corrupt, then all the other average Joes know it's corrupt too. But they're just not smart enough to realize that Trump can't clean all that out. He talks big, but he can't clean all that out. And I don't think he even did. I don't think he even tried to. He fired some people, but I don't think he really... It's crazy, man. There's nobody's coming to save our country. There's not gonna, people are hoping for like this great leader who like will cause wars to stop and cause crime to go down and end racism and better the police force and better our civil relationships. Well, really, it starts with us, man. It starts with us. We need to do a lot. We need to be better people, right? There's not going to be anyone who comes along and does all that. And it's silly to think so. People are looking for a Jesus figure. They're looking for a savior, and you can't find it in a man. Even though Jesus was a man, but he was also God. Nobody is God but Jesus and God himself. So you're looking for this leader. You really don't realize it, but you're subconsciously looking for God. You're subconsciously looking for a savior. But you're doing it because people don't believe. They don't want to believe in God. They don't believe that God can save them or help them when he can. They just don't give them a chance. Yeah, we should pray for our country, We should pray for our country because I think we're going through some dark times, and these might be the end times. These might be the darkest to where it just gets darker and darker. I don't know. I don't know where it's gonna go. There might be some peace here. We'll see. Maybe somehow, because I think people are starting to wake up. I don't think it's gonna be like 2016 to 2020. I think we learned a lot of lessons from that. I think we realized we can't go back there. We can't go back to that kind of crap. I hope not, but I don't think so because it just seems like people are getting smarter. They saw Joe Biden. They saw how corrupt he was. We can all see it. They saw how messed up the government really is and how much they lie for their guy that they want to get in. They saw how the media constantly attacked Trump, and they thought it was normal for a while, but then they realized, well, why isn't the media attacking Joe Biden? Because he's obviously got all this messed up crap going on with his son, all these bad business dealings, and he's real touchy-feely with everybody, and he can't talk, he's senile, and just the list goes on, right? And people are like, wait a minute, what's going on? Why are they packaging this guy like he's legit? They must think we're stupid. Which is interesting, because it's like, well, finally, it got exposed. People thought Bush was a joke, right? I mean, that was a messed up situation there, but that eventually ended, and now we got Biden again, and it's like he makes Bush looks like a Rhodes Scholar. He makes Bush look like a college graduate. Well, he probably was. I don't even know, but of course he didn't. I'm sure he didn't do any work. Sure it was all paid for by his daddy, but he made Bush look like an intellect. He makes Bush look like a genius compared to Biden. It's sad. It's sick. And people know that was racist for a lot of his life, and he said racist shit on his campaign, and fraudster, liar, you name it. And it's just like people are seeing through it. People are like, you know what? This isn't real anymore. This isn't real. This really is fake. This really is a stage. They're really actors. They're really puppets. These are not leaders. They're puppets. They're just yes men. They're just lobby pleasers, right? They're just con men. They're shysters. They're profiteers. None of them. I mean, who amongst them really has their country's best interest in their heart? I don't know, man. It's real weird. That's what Trump continues to say? Is that really real? Is he really fit for the office? But does it really matter? Even if he got in, well, 4 years, okay. Well, then we're gonna have the same problem in another 4 years, and gotta get somebody in, and it's all corrupt, and they're trying to get their guy in. It's the same fight. So people are starting to realize, well, it's asinine. It's pointless. It's just a perpetual shit show, you know. So this is why I say we ourselves need to have a better culture if we can. But the times are getting dark, fellas. Times are getting dark. If you know, you know. But anyway, it's social engineering. You know, they're doing so much behind the scenes, and who's behind them? Who's behind the social engineers? Well, Satan. They're Satanists. He's instigating it. They're tools of Satan. They're followers of Satan. That's why they put out filth. That's why they put out garbage through music and the media, etc. You know, they're all insiders. They're all trying to divide and conquer, our country and weaken in any way they can through radical feminism and pornography and drugs and alcohol and all this evil culture that they're propagating. Who does that? Well, the devil does that. Somebody evil does that, right? But there is an inverse to that. There are good things. There are righteous things. There are good people and righteous people. Few and far between, it seems, but they're out there. But we just got to maintain until God comes back, Anyways, guys, I just wanted to talk about that a little bit, get that off my chest. But I definitely think that we need some kind of light into our situation. We need to shine a light into our situation, and it's not going to come from a man. The truth shines light, right? God shines light. Following righteousness over unrighteousness shines light. And so I think we can do that by going back to a culture, going back to wholesome values, going back to a culture that's traditional, puts God first, holds marriage in honor, is righteous as much as it can be. But it's a fight, man. It's a fight. Anyway, appreciate y'all listening. It's Jay Lee, Northwest Podcast. Peace.